If I had a time machine, I would go back and tell myself these 5 things that I wish I knew before moving to France. Unfortunately, I don't have a time machine, so I'm just gonna have to tell you here on YouTube. Here's something I never thought I would say. Hi and welcome to my channel. If you're new here and you don't know me from TikTok or Instagram, I'm Charlotte. I am an American who's been living in France for the past 3 years. I spent 1 year in Tours, France, which is in the Loire Valley, and the past 2 years I've been living in Paris. I've been studying French for 11 years now, and the past 3 of those have been in France. But before that, I had been just dreaming of at least visiting more. I never really thought that I was going to be living here. And so I feel there were some things I just wasn't mentally prepared for when I moved. Just for a bit of context on me, I graduated from Michigan State University, and after I graduated, I ended up moving just for a year-long contract as an English teacher through the program TEPIF. I literally thought this was going to be a 9-month thing where I move and then I go back to the US and I tell everybody about how awesome it was. And instead, I ended up randomly getting a job in Paris, and I don't see myself leaving anytime soon. So without further ado, let's get into it. The number one thing I wish I knew when I moved to France was always say bonjour. A lot of people say that French people are super rude and whatever, but to be honest, I think what's happening is you just don't know that you're supposed to say bonjour, and they are expecting you to say bonjour. If you don't know, bonjour means good day. The thing is, if you miss this, it's basically like slapping a French person in the face. It is what they call la politesse, politeness, and this is not something that's just a good to have or a nice to have. This is key. This is a big rule in their culture. And you say it to everyone. When you go to the grocery store and you're just checking out, bonjour, every time. If you're going to a restaurant and the host comes out to greet you, you always start with bonjour, and you wouldn't say bonjour, I want a table for 3 people. You would say bonjour, and you wait for them to say bonjour back. It's just that politeness, right? It's just saying, hey, you're a human, I'm a human. This is so much more than just a transactional relationship. This is just humans being nice to each other. And when I say you say this everywhere, I mean it. Like, I go to the laundromat where I live because I don't have a laundry machine in my apartment. Someone will come in and they will say to me, bonjour. And the first time that this happened, I was like, bonjour. Like, I didn't realize it was that important to say literally all the time. And this is not a transactional relationship, right? It's just them coming to me and saying bonjour and me going back and saying bonjour. There's nothing else that's happening, right? They don't need anything from me. And the other day I was in the dentist office, like waiting room, and this girl came in and said bonjour to everyone. And I was like bonjour, but I was also kind of embarrassed because I didn't say it before she said it. I didn't say it when I came in, so I was kind of embarrassed, but they seemed to be okay with it. And if you don't do this, don't feel bad, because this is something that even French people will forget to do sometimes. I remember once I was at a bar near the canal, like in Paris, and this guy comes up to the waiter at this bar and says, "Un table pour deux, s'il vous plaît." And that means table for 2, please. And this guy looks him straight in the face and is like, bonsoir. And I was watching, I was like, oh my God. He just cut him down like at the knees. And like, to anyone else, this wouldn't seem like a big deal, but I could tell in this situation, like the guy just like his face got embarrassed, like, cause it's kind of a cool bar and he's kind of a cool guy, right? And he just did this huge social faux pas, right? The worst thing that you can hear is someone saying bonjour or bonsoir when you just asked them something and then you're realizing, oh my God, I never said bonjour. So not the vibe. The second thing that I wish I knew when I moved to France was to be direct. I think in the US, the value of being nice is kind of at the top of the food chain, right? I'm from the Midwest, and so it is something we're literally known for, is just being nice people, which is awesome. But it was kind of a culture shock to come here and realize that being nice is not held to the same standard as just being honest. For example, I was on a date one time with this guy and he said, yeah, I actually went to the US for like a study exchange or something like that. He was living in the US for a little bit. He said, yeah, I just had a really hard time becoming friends with Americans because you say one thing, but then you do another. So he said, I would go to all these parties and everyone would just be like, oh my gosh, you're so cool, let's hang out. And you would exchange numbers. And then the next day you would text them and they would just never text you back. And it was really hard for him because French people make friendships differently than Americans. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But it's also really hard because it's like, if you said you wanted to hang out, why don't you want to hang out? Whereas an American can kind of tell, right? We always have that friend that we see and we go, oh my God, we need to get coffee. We need to catch up. You both kind of know you're never going to be catching up together. French people don't have that reflex because to them, if you say you want to do something with them, you mean it. Why would you lie? And the worst part of this is that on this date, I say to this guy, oh my gosh, you'll see, like, not every American is like this. Like, I can understand where you're coming from, but yeah, I agree. Like, that's so annoying to me, blah, blah, blah. And we got to the end of the date and he says to me, like, you know, I had a really nice time. I'd love to see you again. I think I said something like, comme vous voulez, or like, you know, c'est toi qui décide, meaning like, you're deciding. It's you who can tell me when you want to see me again. Like, I'm down, I'm game, let's hang out. The thing is, this was not the best date of my life. It wasn't bad, it just wasn't really a good date for me. And so I actually wasn't planning on seeing this guy again. So he texted me later on in the week and he's saying like, oh my gosh, I had so much fun with you. Would you like to go to the museum this weekend? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh no, I'm doing the thing that I said, oh, not all Americans are like that. And literally I respond and I go, hey, I'm not really interested. After like literally a couple days ago, I'm going, oh, whatever you want, let's hang out whenever you want. Like, I'm the problem. In this case, it wasn't a big deal, but overall in French friendships and also at work, I've realized that being honest with someone is 100% better than being nice to them and kind of sugarcoating things. French people are just direct and to the point. This is also another reason that people think French people are mean, because they're very honest, whereas Americans are very nice, and we kind of would rather be nice to you than maybe hurt your feelings with dishonesty. The third thing I wish I knew before I moved to France was that being annoying will get you everywhere. And what I mean by this is that the French no doesn't always mean no. Sometimes hiding inside of that no is actually a yes. The thing is that my American brain is like, don't annoy people because their opinion of you is the most important thing in the world. This doesn't mean be rude, but what it means is, especially in a bureaucratic situation, if a French person says like, no, I can't do that for you, right? No, you're not in the right place. No, you have to go somewhere else. You have to fill out this other paper. You didn't even bring the right paper. Don't be afraid to challenge them on that and say, why not? Can we try? Are you sure? And this sounds like something that in the US would be like a huge like faux pas, don't do that at all. It's actually something in France that will get you a lot farther with French people. I don't know why this is, I just know it works. One of the best examples of this is when I was looking for the apartment I'm in right now. I actually needed to get out of my old apartment like within the month. My lease was ending. It was this whole thing. And this was the only apartment that had like even called me back. I got rejected from everything else that's just looking for an apartment in Paris. And I would call the lady, like my contact at this company, every single day, sometimes twice a day for like 2 weeks straight. She literally was like, Charlotte, I'm on vacation. And I was like, me too. Can I have the apartment, please? Because it's always kind of like, oh, we have to talk to this person, we have to do this and that. And a lot of times that is true, but it's not really seen as a negative here to kind of push people and bother them. To be fair, bothering a French person on vacation is like the cardinal sin in this country. I do ask for forgiveness for that, but on the whole, I did get the apartment and I didn't have to end up living on the streets or on someone's couch. So I'm not too mad about it. The fourth thing I wish I knew before moving to France is sad, but making French friends will not be easy. I have this saying where it's like Americans are like dogs and French people are like cats. And in the way that dogs will like run up to you, they want to play, they're just happy to make a friend. And cats are very much so like you have to let them come to you. They're very chill. You can't really force a cat to like you the way that dogs just automatically like you. And it's very similar with French people. So instead of thinking, oh, I met this person and I'm ready to hang out with them every day, we're gonna be best friends, that's not really how it works for French people. They take a while to open up, and once they do open up, they're really, really loyal. Another reason it's hard to make French friends is because of this loyalty. They are friends with people from like their childhood, and not like, oh, this is my one childhood friend I stuck in contact with. Like, no, like their group of friends from elementary school is their group of friends up until like death. I don't know. So it takes a lot of patience, and don't be surprised if you think you're really close to the French person, but they don't invite you to things with their other friends, or you don't always hear from them or something like that. It just takes time, but like I said, it really pays off. And of course, as with anywhere in the world, to make friends, it's really great to have mutual interests. So some things that I've started doing is like I went to like randomly a surf camp, and I made a bunch of really great friends there and people that I still hang out with even now. And this is just something that is an interest for me. I really wanted to try surfing, and I went and I made a bunch of friends, and it was super fun. You can do things like run clubs. You can do things like, I don't know, chess club. I don't know what you would do outside of sports. It sounds like you wouldn't be able to do anything outside of sports, but since French people really care about arts and things like that, I'm sure there are ways that you can find friends with a different, board game or video game that you like to play, or movies that you like. You can find some sort of cinema clubs. Definitely, just like back home, find friends in situations that you like to be in and doing things you like to do. And those will likely translate outside of that activity as well. Number 5, always be yourself. It's so cheesy, but this is like definitely my favorite one out of all 5 of these, because it's something that I have to remind myself, and I struggle with actually even to this day after 3 years of living here. I think a lot of people, when they move to France, or they probably move anywhere, they go, oh my gosh, I don't want to look like the American. And I will sometimes be walking around with friends and they go, oh my God, like I just get so embarrassed speaking English like out in like public, or oh my gosh, it's so obvious like I'm American because I'm wearing blah, blah, blah today. And I often fall into that trap, and I try to kind of put on this like French blasé, serious kind of vibe. Like when I'm on the metro or I'm getting coffee, where I'm like, I don't care, nothing matters, I don't even care that I'm here. And to be honest, that affects me negatively. It's also like, why do I care if people know I'm an American? If they talk to me, they're definitely gonna find out either way. And when I'm saying this, I don't mean this in the way of like, of course you should respect the culture that you're in. I've definitely noticed that French people speak much more quietly than Americans. I think that's a huge stereotype. And so I do try to respect that if I'm in a restaurant, I'm not like the loudest one there, because that sometimes will happen. Like I said earlier, a lot of French people are just more closed off, just a bit more cold. And once you get to know them, they warm up. But as an American, I am a very warm person. I'm very bubbly. I love to chat with the people around me, even just in line to get a coffee. Very literally today, I went to get a coffee, and this guy and his family came in, and I held the door open for them, which is just a thing in general you should always do for people, no matter where you are. And afterwards he said, oh no, please go ahead of us. And I said, no, I don't know what I want yet. Like, I don't want to make you wait. So they all went ahead of me. And then as they're checking out, and I'm checking out because I eventually did decide what I wanted. As that was happening, he kind of looked over and he said, so did you decide what you wanted? And I was like, wow, this is kind of strange, because French people don't talk to each other. Of course, neither of us were French in this situation. But it was funny because I'm thinking French people would never just talk to each other. So my first instinct after living here is like, shut down the conversation. Like, what? Yes, I did decide, like, leave me alone. But then I thought, back home, this would be so normal. And so I said, yeah, this is what I decided, this is what I got. And he said, oh, that's a good choice. And then the conversation kind of stopped, and I thought, I'm a curious person. I would love to get to know this random person with no expectations. So I asked, oh, so are you and your family here on vacation? And he says, yeah, we are. We actually just came from London. And so we get to talking about his trip. And then he says, where are you from? I say, I'm actually from the US. I come from Michigan. And he says, oh my gosh, is that near Ohio? I said, yes, it is near Ohio. And they had some sort of connection with Ohio. And the guy ended up getting my coffee for me just because we were just chatting about Michigan and we were chatting about life. And it's one of those things where it's obviously not about him buying me a coffee, right? I was in there because I can definitely buy myself a coffee, but it's just this idea of like, I just chose to be myself in that moment and not try to do this weird, like, oh, I'm French, I'm doing this cultural fit in and trying to be like a round peg in a square hole. And so I got to have this conversation with this guy and get to meet his family, and then we just went our separate ways. But it still made my day just that much better. To be totally honest, I don't think that even a couple months ago I would have acted like that in that situation, because I would try to have this like French, this is so blasé kind of way about myself. But I noticed that when I am just being myself and I get to be a warm and bubbly American person, I feel better and I feel lighter, because I'm not trying to fit myself into a stereotype that I'm just not. So those are my 5 things that I wish I knew before moving to France, and I hope that they were really helpful for you if you're moving. But if you didn't find them helpful, or there's something specific that you want to know more about, seriously, let me know in the comments. I would love to grow my channel with videos that people want to be watching. And don't be afraid to let me know what you thought of the video by hitting the like button, or I hope not, the other button. I'd love to be posting videos about once a month, so hopefully I'll be seeing you soon, and I hope you have a great day.